What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Fight Within podcast. Today's guest is none other than Uncle Creepy, Ian McCall. He's a UFC veteran, and in my opinion, one of MMA's lighter weights legend. Ian, thanks so much for being here, man. Appreciate you. And let's get right to it. I want to know why MMA. Why a sport where you get punched and kicked in the face, and your diet is crazy, and you know your training regimen's insane. So it's like, how'd you fall in love with this sport?
Oh man, so I started in martial arts at 4 years old.
Okay.
And it was an obsession. There was 3 things I wanted to do as a kid. You know, you're a kid, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be this. I wanted to be a scientist, I wanted to be a comedian, and I wanted to be, once I saw UFC, I really was like, oh shit, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I get a little obsessive over things, a very obsessive compulsive type of mindset just with life. And I'm able to control it in a good fashion usually. And that obsession just grew and grew, and I found different martial arts, you know, Kung Fu and karate, and then wrestling, and I call myself a wrestler, a grappler, an American grappler, because that's really where I shine. You know, that's just like, I like this. I'm a great kickboxer, sure, a boxer, but my natural abilities, you know, are in that realm the best. And it's you know, from high school wrestling to college wrestling to, you know, I went to college and I met Antonio Benuela. So I guess I'd already known him, and Jake Shields and those guys from when they came down and hung out with us in high school. But I met Chuck Liddell, and you know, these guys, I got up there and they're like, hey, you're here, you come hang out, you're with us now. You know, they were just friends of friends, and they pulled me in, and it was a crash course in MMA even more. You know, I was the young kid that idolized people like Chuck and BJ and Boss Rutan and Kid Yamamoto and whoever, you know, all these incredible fighters that I was just enamored with, you know, the different styles and all this stuff. I became friends with those people. Like, I've been business partners with those people, and like, I know their children, I know their wives, I know these are my like family. Yeah. And I'm such a lucky kid in that regard, where I was able to accomplish a thing. I became the best on the planet. And not just the best, but you get it. Like, 100%. I reached a level of elite status. Like, there's good, there's great, there's elite. I beat one of those guys. And sure, I had a really dramatic fall from grace, but whatever, it happens, you know, and that's you know, I look at what Demetrius did. Yeah, I used the moment that my life fell apart as a catalyst to start doing drugs again, Oxycontin specifically. Now, I was also on Oxycontin or on painkillers and pills from 14 to 34. I'm 36. I finally got off it after I retired. The one time I became sober in between, which was right in the middle, I became the best on the planet. Yeah. And I don't, who cares, you know, what that means or what have you. People, oh, you know, have regrets? Like, that means I would be living in the past, and I don't care. My life is awesome, you know? I had a lot of fun. But I accomplished that, and then, you know, I got screwed, whatever you want to call it, that happened in Australia. My life that was the match that lit all the shit on fire. And I used that as an excuse to use drugs again, and my life fell apart. It was very public. You know, DEA raided my house when I'm the best in the world. Like, it was silly. And granted, I wasn't selling drugs anymore, but it just shows you where I was at. You know, my ex-wife was on drugs, and she was in and out and pulling knives on people, and me, and fucking just madness. Yeah. Okay, so that happened to me. And Demetrius, he openly says it, that I was the catalyst for him to become the best person in the world. So my hat's off to him. He did it. And also what I've been able to, because we all know, I mean, I would have, I'm a business person. I would have, and I was marketed as like the first Connor before Connor was even around. Yeah. You know, and not to saying I'm like Connor. He can catch lightning in a bottle. He's a special individual. But as far as business goes, I would make a lot of money, and I would have a lot of fame. And how a little bit of money and fame affected me and turned me into a little bit of a monster. So I think I'm better off the fact that I didn't. I don't want to be one of those 30 for 30 stories where they talk about my life and death. Yeah. I already died once. You know, I died when I was sober, and the one screw up I had was I went to get tattooed from my chest. I took pills again. I died. I woke up in the hospital. I was there for a week, and I should have learned from that. because I ended up signing to fight Formiga. That's where I became the best in the planet while I was in the hospital because of dying. But I'm a little crazy, you know. I'm a talented person. I was able to exploit my genetic lottery and my disposition for violence, you know. And sure, I lost the martial artist along the way for the most part, which I'm kind of ashamed of. That's one thing that hurts because I blew it, you know. And I'm just trying to teach other athletes and not just fighters, but athletes to not do that.
But how do you, while you're going through that storm, how do you balance? Because it almost seems like you're not that you're lying to yourself, but you're saying, hey, I'm going to train my ass off, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to be disciplined, and you're doing all the things necessary to be successful, because a little bit or a lot of success, when you're at that elite level, you got to have discipline, you got to work hard. But then you're almost bouncing back. After you've already done that, you bounce back to, you know, I'm gonna take some pills, I'm gonna drink a little bit, I'm gonna do what I want because I think I deserve it. Was that the attitude, or was it just that the addiction had such a strong hold that you balanced it very well?
Oh, I mean, I was always in the gym, and I was still beating the hell out of everybody. But it was the struggle within. I knew the party ended a long time ago. You know, it's time to grow up, Peter Pan.
Yeah.
And I didn't enjoy it. I was miserable. I was tortured the whole time I fought. You know, and I used it in so many fashions, gross fashions. You know, like my ex-wife. Sure, she was out doing whatever she was doing. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know, jail, rehab, things would go with that. While I was raising my daughter as I had a career and blah blah. I was on pills the whole time. I wasn't any better than her. You know, I deal in trauma and addiction now, and healing. Everyone's a broken child, and I look at my kid and I'm like, oh fuck, dude, what did I do? What did we do? Sure, she was gone, but I wasn't any better. I had new girlfriends all the time. You know, I was crazy. It was madness. I was really tortured. You know, and there was both sides of it. There was I thought I deserved it because I had the surgeries. I had 3 surgeries here, 4 surgeries here, a fracture dislocation here, tore my hip and my groin. I had MRSA 3 times, bulging discs, popped my knees. Like, I had an actual excuse for it. But now that I'm out of it, and I've healed, and I work in the healing, and I've always eaten right. Yeah. I've always worked out. I've always done breath work, meditation, yoga. I did everything at a really high level, but I was also taking a fuckload of drugs, and it was my downfall. Yeah. But I had to numb the pain because I didn't know how to deal with myself and my trauma and just the world as a whole. I was afraid, you know. I you know, and when I retired, I mean, when Horiguchi knocked me out, I was snorting OxyContin in the back, you know, in Japan. I had a great time. But I already knew before that. I'm like, I shouldn't even be here.
But how do you deal with that? Because I remember towards the end of my career with Bellator, literally getting hit against the cage. I'm on all fours, and I'm getting punched. And in my head, I'm literally thinking, like, oh, I can't wait to go to the back and get my paycheck. Yeah. Like in the middle of the fight. And Big John's like, Manny, you gotta move, Manny. And I'd stick my head out. I'm like, he can't hurt me. And bang. Yeah, I couldn't wait to get paid. And I was justifying it because I was saying, well, I need to feed my kids. I have 3 kids. I need a paycheck. How do you think being in that hurricane or then in that storm clouded your judgment? Because you're a very smart man. You have business ventures that you're working on. There's things. And not to say, oh, let's not live in the past, but you grow from it. And when you grow from it and you learn, it turns you into who you are now. But in that storm, do you think it clouded your judgment because you were on all that? Or did you still know like what you were doing?
To a point, but I mean, I knew what I was doing. There was weeks in my life I don't remember, of course, you know, but you know, I knew what I was doing. I was so addicted, and parts of times I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to, you know, you just are in this cycle of, by the end of your pill bottle, it's like, this is the last one, I need to stop this. And then you get sick, and then a couple of days later they come up, and you're like, I'm getting those. And then it's all in, and you're taking all of them, and you're just a mess, you know? And it's obvious.
For people that haven't experienced that, how would you describe that to them? The knowing and having the knowledge that, like, yeah, I should probably stop, but I know that I can get a refill once it's over. Like that stronghold that it has, again, because you're very disciplined. You're a very hard worker, and it showed. And you know you have that, but you have this stronghold that just has you by the balls. Like, how would you verbalize that to someone that hasn't experienced it?
People don't really understand the addiction unless they've gone through it.
Yeah.
It has a literal hold on your body, and the detoxification of your body is the worst thing that you'll ever go through. You know, I'm sure in that sense, you know, I've had a bunch of other crazy shit go through my life. It's horrible. But like for that, oh my God, that's why addicts don't want to give up. That's why they don't want to stop, because going through that, it's not just a week or 2 weeks, it's months. And you don't feel right. And your body ends up running off these things. Because if you don't have them, you are fucked. You're literally fucked. And you know, they control your brain, they control your mood, they make you in a way worse mood. Your voice sounds different. You know, your whole facial structure just droops. You can see, you know, when people are on pills. And you know, you see so many people, I did the same thing. I abused that, saying I have a prescription. You know, these people are gross and just judgmental and this stuff, and it's honestly, it's almost worse. I can't say it is worse for sure, or it's not, because it's right on that level, you know. And to see how the system is broken with it. I mean, I'm going through some stuff right now with somebody else that's not my issue, but they're dealing with this. They're being abused this way, and I'm like, I used to do that to someone, you know. And sure, not as bad as this. I know where he's coming from, you know, kind of thing. And it sucks, you know. And I'm lucky I was able to get off this stuff with the way I did. And now I get to teach it, you know, I have a friend, JJ Thomas. He is the U.S. Olympic snowboarding coach. He's Shaun White's coach. Shaun White attributes all of his newfound success to JJ. Yeah. And you know, JJ, we're friends. You know, and one day he called me. I used to date one of his friends, and he calls me and goes, "Hey man, I hear you're retiring." I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" I didn't know we were this good of friends. And he's like, "Yeah man, I got some, well, let's talk." And I was like, "Cool, yeah, I love the guy, you know, anyways." I'm like, "Sure, listen." And I was a mess at that point, on suicide watch. You know, I was just a train wreck. He goes, "You're gonna go through these certain steps, you know, these 5 steps, let's say." And he spelled them out. It was just a long conversation. And it all came true. All of it, the pain, the suffering, the hurt, the realization, the death of ego and all this stuff. And on the other side, he's like, you're gonna be a teacher, a coach, an educator. You're gonna do these things that I'm doing. He did a TED Talk, you know, he's on top of it. And it's happening. I'm lecturing around the world. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. I mean, sure, my girlfriend is, which is cool, because you know, I have that's my education source for everything in this realm. And people don't listen to doctors and scientists and these intellectuals that have more schooling in these whatever thing you're looking at, whatever, you know, content. But we don't listen to them. You'll listen to people like me, some dickhead with a fucking blue check mark, and dude, some of these people, these influencers, whatever, just say shit that you're like, oh my God, why do you have 2 million followers? You know, like, that's not right and that's not real, and like, stop it. You're gonna get people hurt. Yeah. So I just take it serious. I take that responsibility serious, where I'm like, okay, I mean, dude, I'm up from when especially my daughter's at the river all the time. She's a super athlete, and she's wakeboarding, or she's snowboarding, she's doing all this stuff. When she's not around, you know, because we split her halftime, I'm working. I work from when I wake up in the morning, 7, 8 o'clock. I go downstairs. The professor is what I call her. She makes me do breath work and meditation. I go downstairs, coffee, smoke a joint with the cat, and there's a calendar of everything I have to do. It's efficiency, you know, and getting everything done. There's there's my studies, there's my talks, there's my classes, there's me building apps. I've got 2 apps we're developing. One's made and working on Twitter through MMA space, and then one has to do something else. And it's, there's just a lot going on. I work in cannabis again. I stepped out for a while, and it's just too lucrative, and my CBD companies, it's called Elixir. We have the world's first FDA and third-party certified CBD lab, and my friends and I did it. I'm like, that's really cool. Yeah. Pulled that off because no one else has it. I think people have tried, or they've started the process, but we're the first ones to market for the last 6 months with a product. If you want to be in the Olympics, UFC, NC2As, whatever it is, and you want a legal product, we have the only one.
Yeah.
And that's it's good for business. But there's a lot of things going on that now I can set back and I have something to look forward to. But a lot of these fighters, like at first, I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. Yeah. I had no clue. I literally had no clue. I just had an obsession in psychedelics and in mycology and trauma healing and addiction because I've been through it. I've been to rehab twice. I got sober. I got better. I don't even have any arthritis. I have very little arthritis. Because of the healing I've done in psychedelics, because of the microdosing I've done, because of the anti-inflammatory diet. I mean, sure, it's not cheap. I take CBD I own the CBD company, but it's different. I take about 100 milligrams of THC before I go to bed every night, or full spectrum. So it's just these little things, and I also chain smoke, joints or hash joints. Or I work from home, so I sit there in the backyard and I smoke, and I have clients come and sit around the fire pit, and I just hang out all day. But it's about efficiency. It's about efficiency in my food. It's about efficiency in my mental capacity, and my workouts and my sex life, and I mean everything. I'm still an addict. I'm still a sex addict. So, thank God, I have an accountability partner and my girlfriend who's the same. But these certain things like that, if I'm gonna keep that in my life and not let it be a detriment, I have to make sure it's done and then it's fixed. Get that out of the way, because I know daily if I don't do it, I'm gonna be stupid and be distracted. So that's done. This is done. And it's just so I can get all this stuff efficiently done, because there's not enough hours in the day.
So what do you attribute you being able to overcome those addictions and that stronghold that say pills or everything else you were doing?
Getting off the pills was able to help me with everything else.
And how did you get off the pills?
Okay, so retirement, then I came home. I started working with a lab called Pixis Labs. Uh-huh. They make peptides. And I had already been microdosing. And I got more into the science, more into the education of myself, because that's how I work. And I started, learning more about biohacking. And when you're microdosing psilocybin, and also LSD and psychedelics in general, but mainly you have psilocybin is what I started with. And you have a process called epigenetic neurogenesis. And you'll hear this more, neurogenesis, neuroplasticity. It's the healing or the process of creating more new brain cells. Mm-hmm. You know how they always said, brain cells die, they're gone forever. Yeah. No, they're not. And when you have brain damage, whether it's subconcussive or concussive blows or drug addiction, things like that, they create plaque on your brain, they create damage. And you have those pain receptor cells that get damaged, you get the opioid receptor cells that get damaged, you get the actual things that create connectivity between the sides of the brain. You're actually able to link the sides of the brain with psilocybin in there and that connectivity. You have new neural pathways being built, old ones being restored, old memories coming up, absorption of new information. I mean, there's tons of performance stuff. We'll get into that later, but I was able to heal my brain with high doses of macro doses, big doses, of course, and then also small doses. I microdosed for 2.5 years straight, 5 days on, 2 days off. And then usually you don't take a big dose on the weekends, but if I did, I would take a day or two off, and then I would take 5-10 grams, just because I was in this healing space where I just had to figure it out. And I'm sure I went too far, but I did it myself, so I'm sorry. I'm just telling you the truth. And when you have the neurogenesis happening, you're trying to create glutamate in your brain and the peptide brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Well, I was already sticking that in my body with something called NAD+, which is nicotinicide. Big words, sorry. And I was able to not only facilitate the creation of that with my own brain, but then also put a bunch in my body. and then fix my testosterone. And you know, people always ask me to come fighting again. I'm like, I'm on TRT. I can't get off this. Yeah. I'm regulating my hormones because my body's fucked. My brain and my everything's messed up. From 4 years old on or 14 years on with drugs, there's been a lot of damage. So I'm fixing it that way. And then you have something called, maybe you might have heard of it, BPC 157. Rogan always talks about it, and those guys, Ben Greenfield. It's called body protection compound. And if you have it, like say you tear your intestine, and that's what heals you super quick, like Wolverine. This stuff's insane. And I have an affinity for smart people. And my friends happen to be biochemists. And they have a lab here in Orange County. They make the best products it's the only peptides I've tried, but from what I hear and what they tell me, they're the best.
So how do you monitor that? Like, are you getting tested all the time, or how do you monitor?
I got tested at first, and everything's low, everything's screwed up, this and that. And then once I got through the BDNF and the NAD plus and the BP, I mean, this was 2 weeks of multiple injections where I couldn't even lift my shoulders. I couldn't even lift my arms. I was miserable. But I didn't even have to take Suboxone or anything, but I also have workouts, daily workouts. That's what I do. I have the diet, the anti-inflammatory diet. The inflammatory response in our body is huge. Like people go, oh, well, CBD fixes everything. This must be bullshit. It smells like snake oil. I'm like, no. When something bad happens in your body, you have an inflammatory response. And if you get rid of the inflammatory response, whether it's a rash, an injury, my daughter's autoimmune disease, you can fix these things with lessening the inflammation. They're even finding out that cannabis helps with COVID. And that's the inflammatory response as well, I'm sure, but this article I read was about protein production in the cell. There's a lot of ways to boost our immune system, and cannabis seems to work. I'm so happy my mom's a chef and she's got boxes of green butter, like you open the fridge, and at one point I opened the fridge, like 50 pounds of shake. I was like, Jesus, Mom. But it's just it's good to see that these plant medicines, even cannabis, are being explored for this. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we can find out that cannabis can help fight COVID, oh my God, sales are up. That's huge. And legalization needs to happen. Imagine, I always said this, that Trump, just because this is a popularity contest to him and we're all stupid enough to play, he's gonna make cannabis legal, and then every person of color, brown, black, yellow, whatever it is, they're gonna be like, he's cool, he's fine. He made weed legal, And maybe white people too, but white people, it's different, the difference. It's shitty. And I found out I'm not Mexican, by the way. I ran my 23andMe. I was like, I looked at my parents and I was like, what the fuck? You raised me as a Mexican. And because my mom's Spanish Basque, and little Native American, and my dad's, Northwestern European, like Scandinavian, Viking, and a little Greek. And I was like, I'm sure I got called a beaner growing up. That was the most discrimination I've ever seen. Yeah. But to me, I'm like, oh, cool, I get to fuck you up now. As a kid, I was like, cool, this is a fist fight. It never affected me, Yeah. And I'm dealing with discrimination now for the first time in my life. Real discrimination, psychedelic discrimination, which is.
And then how do you deal with that? Because it seems like there's always going to be trouble. There's always going to be setbacks, and you've been able to deal with it in different ways. You've turned to drugs. I don't know if you've ever done counseling, but
we've done a lot of therapy. And I do therapy weekly. Myself and my, as they say in Psychedelics, my beloved. We do the work. She's deep in her healing. I'm deep in my healing, and we're learning. We're getting all these different setups and modalities in our world, because we want to touch on the political, the decrim. We want to touch on the activism. We want to touch on the psycho-spiritual. I'm going on a 3-year shaman course with her. Yeah. Not because I want to be a shaman. That's her thing. I just want to grow personally. I'm trying to be a better version of myself, because I'm trying to show people that this is how I did it, and I'm sure I'm going to go really extreme because that's what I do. Yeah. But to show people like this is the capabilities of this. This is how it works. Then you do it, and again we practice. We do all sorts of modalities, and it's not just about taking psychedelics or drugs. It's about doing the work, and sometimes there's nothing involved. It's just breath work. Yeah. I'm going to get my master's class in breathwork with my coach Casper Vanderbilt, but I've known him forever, and it's psilocybin assisted breathwork, so it'll be a little better for my performance coaching.
So what's your answer now to that constant struggle? Because it seems like, you know, I'm sure there's always a struggle to go back to the negative and to the bad things.
That's the thing. I've gone so far over to one side that, and I was talking about it the other day, like I've been getting these expectations from these people in psychedelics who I love. I adore these people. These are the people I hang out with every day. And they know I love them, but they have the expectation of me to be this, like, let's talk about light and love and blah, 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 you know, all that stuff. And I appreciate that stuff. But for me, I can't do it. I'm not at that level yet. And I'm trying. Because I'm a fucking 3-year shaman course. So I can, you know, take ayahuasca all the time and just talk with my eyes closed like they all do. And again, I love these people. I just make fun of my friends. Yeah. But, you know, people get so offended. And I'm like, listen, I used to be a fucking monster, a predator, where I would climb into a cage in my underwear and fuck people up for blood money. Yeah. In front of millions of people and smile about it. Give and take PTSD for fun, you know? I was in cannabis my whole life. So I've been around the criminal element my whole life. Even though I grew up on the beach in Orange County, it's just what I gravitated towards. And I don't know why, but I'm still there. I mean, right now cannabis is legit, and it's good to see us kind of like being, you know, good people in it. But the struggle was so long and so hard that it's just gone now. I'm just trying to be happy and show people how to be happy.
But even then, why do you think you gravitated towards that? Because most people say, you know, oh, you got to grow up in the hood. In order to be bad, in order to have this.
They also say, oh, you can't grow up in a good household with money. And like, I grew up on the beach, you know, like with
That's
good
what I'm
parents,
saying.
and end up becoming the best fighter in the world. And myself and my you know, remember Shane Del Rosario, my best friend who passed away, he died in my arms. You know, like, speaking of trauma, we would be in the back raising our hands because he was a world champion in kickboxing. I was a world champion in mixed martial arts, and we both grew up in like Laguna Niguel, Laguna Beach area, Dana Point, where every life is supposed to be perfect. And when you study this stuff enough, trauma, the studies show that kids who are physically and emotionally abused, you know, get the shit kicked out of them, get, you know, molested and stuff, they fare better with addiction and with all this sort of stuff and trauma than kids who feel neglected. Yeah. And I look at everyone I grew up with, and I'm like, it makes sense. Why are we all so fucked up? People want to talk shit and they want to, you know, like, you guys have everything. It's like, no, listen. Trauma's stored in the tissue. Whether you got raped or someone told you you're an idiot, trauma manifests itself and it stores in your tissue. And it acts as the same. It affects everyone the same. Whether you grew up in a favela in Brazil or in Pasadena, it doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. It really doesn't matter. And this is science, you know, and we have to be cognizant of that like even we'll go back to the discrimination thing. I have to be okay, which I am. I mean, there was just Time Magazine article on gender. Yeah. And, you know, my girlfriend puts it on the table. She goes, read that. I was like, okay, I need to, you know, and I read it and I'm like, okay, it makes sense. Where I have to be, and I am, okay with a man in a dress going into a bathroom with my daughter. Again, I can eat someone. I fuck people up for a living, or used to, you know. So that's still in me, even though I'm out. I don't do it anymore. I don't think that way. But it's in my epigenetics. It's stored deep, and you know, and finally I'm like, okay, that. Maybe that person does identify as a fox or a woman. I don't fucking care. I know the chemicals in the brain, and it could be true, but yet these people, and I bring it up, and I'm like, check it out. All this is happening, no discrimination, yet you'll discriminate on me. And not just me, but my children, my people I love's children, my parent, whoever it is. And again, I'm not mad. I want to talk about it. I want to go look at this. Just because we feel that these plant medicines are a vehicle to enlightenment, that's how we get better. That's how we heal ourselves.
So is that how you're being discriminated now, is because you're in that field?
Oh yeah, and I don't care. I'm like, cool, that's fine. Please discriminate me, because that's gonna give me more of a voice. And I'm not gonna point them out and shit on them, because that's not how it works. But to be able to have that and go, look at guys. I mean, I'm talking other scientists. I have a female friend who is a scientist. She's the head research scientist at Field Trip Labs. It's the first psilocybin research lab ever. One in Jamaica, one in Toronto. They wouldn't let her on at a Bernie Sanders rally. After they gave her a bracelet and the lady saw her shirt and her notebook, it had decrim on it, it had this on it. And she was getting signatures. And she's a firecracker. And she told the lady, goes, oh, you're a scientist, cool, great, go on stage with Bernie, here's a bracelet. Oh, what's that shirt? Oh, mushrooms? Magic mushroom? Oh no, give me that back, you can't go. This is for families. I was like, that's one of the leading brains in this science in the world.
Yeah.
And you just crushed her dream, and now she's pissed. Now you get those sort of people pissed, where they feel like they were wrong. They have to go out and talk about it, and that's what's happening. You get these really smart individuals that are beautiful creatures, and they just are trying. We're all trying to show, like, look at. I mean, I'm sure someone like her is truly offended and hurt. Where I'm like, I just bounce off me. I'm like, cool, check it out. Like, I don't care, but you need to get your shit together because this is unfair. That's pretty much.
Why don't you think people aren't open-minded to it? Because a lot of people.
Stigma and lies.
Is it just not enough knowledge?
Yeah, that's all it is. And people are uneducated. The science is out. The greatest intellectuals in our world that we have, like as a species, are in psychedelics. They're the ones preaching this.
Yeah.
And I know this because I get to talk to them. I get to sit with them. When I talk, they listen. It's really cool. Because again, I'll never be a scientist or a doctor, but I have the knowledge and I do the learning, and I run an integration circle, at least a platform for other people to help teach the things I like. Even if I'm not. Some people go, well, maybe you're not qualified. Okay, if I'm not, then they will. My friends will. Which I am qualified, but it's besides the point.
Yeah.
We have so many business ideas that are going on. This, that we're doing. We're gonna get all this done, and it's gonna make the world a better place. And it's just a matter of time.
How did you find yourself in that space though? Because I feel like you had mentioned it earlier. A lot of fighters, me being a fighter for 10 years, then going into business for myself. A lot of fighters don't plan that.
No,
they don't plan their future. Because when you're in it, you're sold out. Like, this is all I'm doing, and I'm fully focused on this, because you want to be the best.
Yeah.
I talked about it in another episode. It's not smart to get punched and kicked in the face as a hobby.
No.
Like I did it to get paid, to be honest with you. Sure, I was pursuing a little bit of fame, but at some point I was like, no, I want to be the best in the world.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, why am I still fighting? If I know that there's not a realistic chance of me fighting, because it got to a point where I felt like a what do they call not a joust, or the clowns that used to entertain.
Oh, a jester.
A jester.
Yeah.
I felt like that. I felt like people were just paying money to see me either win or get my ass kicked.
Yeah.
That's it. And the promoter and the promotion is making all the money. And I was like, once I lost that passion for it, I was like, there's no need for me to be on there.
Go out there and take damage, and damage in a lot of ways. It takes a toll on your body, it takes a toll on your brain, it takes a toll on your soul. And once you can realize that, and I'm not saying that I had it all figured out, because that was the hardest thing I've ever been through, again, on that level, on that sort of, that personal path, where I didn't know what I was going to do, and that's a horrible feeling. I just had always been in cannabis. I owned part of a CBD company. You go there's a distribution center for actual cannabis, not just CBD in the back. There's, marketing and advertising. There's a lot of stuff to do in that space, and I just found myself there all the time.
Yeah. And
then through my own education in psychedelics, I started to preach about it. And then, October, it was, I met my girlfriend, my current girlfriend. And, a professor at UCLA, like, people look at us and they're like, how did this happen? I'm 5'5", she's 5'11", she's from former Yugoslavia, or modern day Serbia. I'm from here. It's just, we're totally polar opposites. And sure, we met, and there's the physical thing, because we're both gross like that. It's just like, it's a lot. But, accountability partners. It's a serious thing. She teaches in sexual trauma and healing and addiction. So that's, whatever, it makes sense. But there was this fascination where I have never had a brain like that in front of me, where I was like, oh my God, you teach, like, there was just this instant connection. And we started diving deep, and then she took me to a Decrim CA meeting to meet Ryan Mendevar and see those people, and I just sat back and like, this is my life. This is what I have to do, because I see the impact on these people in the crowd, the people that came here to be a part of this, and you know, they needed people like myself to go out and just do what I call the pollination effect. That's why, you know, I deal with celebrities. People in psychedelics, why do you deal with those sort of people? Everyone deserves to heal. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Yes, everyone deserves to heal. I just have access to these people. Why are you complaining? You know, everyone, they go, oh, psychedelics are for everybody. But no, you can't have these people. These are mine. I have secrets. And you're like, come on, that's gross. You're doing exactly what we're fighting against, you know, and even though you just said you're not. And to get these people with blue check marks or whatever, they'll make it cool. Oh, I saw it on Goop with Gwyneth, and I'm like, cool, whatever. I don't care how you learned about it. Yeah. I don't care the holes I poked in that show and I watched it. It doesn't matter. You're now sitting in front of me asking about it. That's all I want, you know. And there's other reasonings why I've sat in front of Jeff Nowitzki in the UFC, sent over proposals, brought in my team in, and we conversated. They still invite me to fights. You know, they can't publicly fund a study I'm trying to set up with Unlimited Sciences with psilocybin, but the UFC calls me and goes, hey, you need tickets this weekend. You should be here to go and talk about this science and this study and my performance coaching in psychedelics and all this stuff. I mean, that's how many other athletes, how many other people in general have actually gone to a major sporting organization and had them go, oh, rad, yeah, we love it. We can't give you money because it's a Schedule I substance, we're a US-based company, but please can we have the information? And Jeff's a good friend of mine, a mentor. I had the UFC's first CBD deal before Aurora came in and gave him all that money. A lot of money. Where I was like, Jeff called and said sorry, and I was like, well, I'll go fuck myself. It's cool, like it's a learning experience, you know? And again, now I have the world's first FDA and third-party certified CBD lab and product, so we're good. But like, I'm gonna give them the information because this is my gift to fighters. Yeah. Whether it's fighters who are at the end of their rope, literally, they're retired, they're a mess, they're all on pills or meth or whatever, they're all partying a lot, because fighters party. Athletes in general do. But through that impulsiveness, the CTE issues, which I've seen in droves, they end up abusing their families, their loved ones in every way, shape, and form. And we're martial artists, you know it. And we don't, I'm sure you don't really hear about the sexual stuff, but I'm sure it's there. And I hate to say that, because we don't do that. We're martial artists. I teach my students, you're held to a higher standard. You protect people. Yeah. And now they're not doing it. They're being crazy. And just that alone, for me to fix that, that was the first thing. I was like, oh, okay, I gotta fix this, because I have my friends' wives calling me and other people's wives and girlfriends calling me. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. I gotta do something. And that'll translate into football and into motocross and into whoever hits their head. Doesn't matter, daily life. Yeah. I mean, abuse has skyrocketed in this pandemic. And, you know, just like me teaching against toxic masculinity, which is something I thought was stupid when I was fighting. And now I'm like, oh, it's a thing. Because we can't act that way anymore. You know, you have these masks of masculinity, like Lewis Howe gave me a book about it, and it's great. And it's true. You have these archetypal things of the clown and this and whatever else it is. And gentlemen, we can't act that way anymore. We finally realize that these creatures, the vessels that we have, we're abusing them. We're not treating them equally. Like, that sucks. We need to do that, you know? So I'm trying to help teach. You can still be an ass-kicking, you know, man that gets pussy and drives a big car, whatever you want. I don't care, whatever douchey shit you want to do. But be a good guy. Yeah. Be a good guy, because you should. You know, that's just, the people like myself are trying to hold people like everyone accountable, not just guys, girls, everybody. You know, because there's a whole change happening, especially with this pandemic, you know, with the fear. You know what happens when you're in state of fear, the fight or flight? You think a bear is going to eat you. You're producing cortisol and stress hormones, and your body doesn't give a shit about anything but saving your life, but survival. So think how that affects your skin, your attitude, your energy. Everything is thrown off. Yeah. If you can have a daily practice of mindfulness and just waking up like I do, whether I breathe, and I say do everything every day, I don't. I just say that a lot. go downstairs, because you're confined with these people, whether it's your kids, or your loved ones, or your roommate, and go downstairs and say something nice. You're beautiful. I love you. Are you hungry? Can I make you food? You want to fuck? Like, what do you want to do? You know, like something cute that's going to put a smile on this person's face. Whatever it is, just give them a hug. Don't say anything. You know. Then the cascading effect will be happiness and energy, good stuff in your house. And if it's not, that's going to come around and bite you in the ass, because then that person's going to have a shitty mood, and that person's going to have a shitty mood, and then they're going to affect, and then you just have this thing it's pointless. It doesn't. Do you want to be efficient? Do you want to get stuff done at home? Because I'm sure you're working. Then be a good person. Be nice. It's just these simple things, and people just don't do it. You know, they're in that constant state of fear, and it's knee-jerk reaction to everything. You know, and I had good friends who were doing it. Him and my friends and their wives, or vice versa. That person leaves the room, and they look at me and go, "Fuck him" or "Fuck her," and I'm like, why? Stop it.
So if people want to get more information, where do they go? How can they find it? And how can they get a hold of you?
So with me, I have the McCall method, not McCall method, because that'll lead you to a physical therapist, a woman. But the McCall method is mine. You can email me at ian@themccallmethod.com. You've got Uncle Creepy MMA, all that has its own social media as well. And then I have Uncle Creepy MMA, where, you know, I push things like Decrim CA, Unlimited Sciences. If you're on Facebook, it's a private group, but I let anyone in. It's the South Orange County Psychedelic Integration Circle. It's wordy, but it just has to say what it is. Yeah. And that's our platform for more education and stuff like that. But you just, you know, look me up on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm putting out tons of information. We actually have a talk on the 21st at noon, I think, with Unlimited Sciences. It's myself, Rashad Evans, Heather Jo Clark, Del Jolly, where we're going over not just the healing benefits of trauma and addiction and all that, but also the actual physical healing of the brain. And then I'll get into performance stuff of how psychedelics can make you a better athlete and better performer. And people always ask, you know, can't you get drug tested for this? You can't. They can't do it. They can't, so do it. I mean, don't do it. I mean, I can't tell you to do it. I can't, whatever, fucking do it. But be responsible. It's about harm prevention. The UFC openly states we don't test for this and we're never going to. That means USADA doesn't test for it. That means the NFL doesn't test for it because they cannot do it. I mean, like they do not have a test. They could figure it out. Someone like, you know, that group of people that I know could do it. But USADA doesn't do it. And because they know there's a protectant value, there's also a healing value and a performance value. And you'll just look at my stuff and I'm talking about it a bunch because it's incredible. You know, and it's all I talk about, so I'm sorry if it comes off
I love
Illinois.
it. No, I appreciate it, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you, man. And remember, guys, that everything was impossible until someone did it.